Hey, welcome to the Runaways podcast. My name is Cody, and it is that time again to do a tier list. And unlike the last couple of weeks, we managed to drag somebody testing to actually come onto the podcast with us, which is completely irresponsible of this person. And they shouldn't be on the podcast. They should 100% be testing instead. But Lucas got a new computer and wanted to finally join the FAB community to be able to release some content without everything breaking and being able to hear him. So hopefully it doesn't happen on this podcast. But Lucas, how you been? It's been a very long time since you've been on.
Good. I've tried to be on since the last time I was on, like 4 or 5 times, and every single time, the network or my computer just crashes. But should be fixed now. This one's running a lot smoother, and so I'm excited to be back. But yeah, it's been good. Obviously, I've been, like Cody said, testing with the rest of the team. Been super busy. We were talking about this a little before the pod, but this is like the hardest we've ever gone in like such a focused amount of time for an event. And I feel like everybody feels like woefully and completely unprepared for the event, despite having all this work put in. But that's how everybody else is going to feel too, right? Nobody's going to feel that prepared except maybe some KO diehards. But for the most part, I think it's kind of cool that everybody's going to go in thinking that they're just playing a terrible deck. It's going to feel like a pre-release almost. It's like a big scale pre-release where like everybody thinks they don't know what they're doing, but it's just going to be who knows at least a little bit more than everybody else, and that's going to be who has the edge. So I'm excited for nationals.
Good to have you on. And Dan, as always, we're back. I know I had to drag you off of testing because you were in the middle of a game, and I was like, "Hey, podcast in 15 minutes," and you're like, "Oh no, I'm in the middle of a game."
Yeah, I would have gone like 4 more hours and not realized easily.
So you're back. But we're here for the most important podcast, which is obviously the tier list, the couple of days before nationals. This will come out like while people are traveling and while most of our team is traveling, and some people are going to be traveling on Thursday as well. But this is kind of our last idea of what's good going into this meta. And without further ado, we can probably just jump right into that. Perfect. So let's dive in to the tier list and a couple caveats going into the tier list. I will say this is for nationals. This is what we think are the best decks in the game currently, within the competitive atmosphere in relation to each other. And then just normal tier list, S, A, B, C, D, nothing crazy going on here. I think in order to place the harder to put people, I think we should start with the easiest to place, and that's probably like Azalea. So I think we should start with Azalea. I would see if anyone disagrees that this is S tier. No. Probably
straight to the
probably top. Best deck in the game.
Right to jail.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Its matchup spread is great. Even its bad matchups, it can win. It lost a lot of its hard counters that it used to have in the meta. Its ability to adapt is really strong. I think Azalea is just in a really good spot right now with, having all of the good legacy support for Ranger that's kind of pushed, while also just being a deck that fundamentally a lot of the decks in the game just don't have an access to play into because it just deals the best numbers with on hits. Anything else on Azalea?
Yeah.
Cool.
No.
Nope.
Easy. Let's go to number 2 then, which I think should be pretty easy to place, and it's Zen. S?
Yep.
I strongly disagree with S.
So
I've been playing a lot of Zen. Like the deck has quite a few bad matchups. It has a lot of counters you can run. I think it's like top A tier for sure, but the deck's got issues, man. It's not like it has S tier turns and it has like the best turns in the game, but I think as a whole in this meta, it's just like Fi at last Nats. Like you're gonna get got by like Oldham's kind of the new of this meta, is how I would put it. Or New's the Oldham of that meta.
I can understand this argument so far. I think personally it's S tier by sheer power level, but we can fill out the list a little bit more and see where it slots in based on where we put other heroes. By the way, I wouldn't, if you told me the only S tier hero in the game is Azalea, I would not even bat an eye at that.
That's what I'm telling you. Maybe KO.
Yeah.
But it's like Zen 100% S tier power. Like he's the top of S tier for power. But in the context of the meta, I think he's A.
Okay.
First or second A tier.
I'm fine with putting him in A for now, and then we might readjust based on where everything else goes. The next one, should be pretty popular. It's going to be KO. Personally, I think KO is either A or S, depending on how it shakes out. Now, I caveat this by saying I think KO is less powerful than he used to be, but his worst matchups are still like 40%.
If that.
Yeah.
No, I'm thinking like...
I think you're an S tier decision maker if you're playing KO. And you locked it in a while ago.
I
don't know if he could be S. I probably wouldn't put him on Azalea tier. I'd probably put him in front of Zen personally.
Yeah. I think if you're going into a tournament, I think KO is in a great spot because you're going to have game into everything you sit across from. So like, you're not like, oh no, I got this matchup, I'm just out of the game. Like, no, you can beat anything that you sit across from. I do think new might be around, a lower percentage sometimes, but not always. Azalea can be tough, but not always. It's just kind of like you're kind of in that 40 to 60% win rate range against everything that you sit across from. And for a tournament deck, I think that's very strong. Lucas, what do you think?
Yeah. He's got a lot of tools too. Like his equipment's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
All of the 2 cost adjustive attacks that are really good in this meta slot in very easily to his cost curve.
Yep. I agree. I mean, it's just a super flexible deck. It has, like Cody said, pretty much no like bad matchups. The reason I wouldn't put it's like on the edge of the 2 tiers. I probably would slot him into the top of A just because he doesn't really have very many like great matchups. Like he doesn't have anything that he's targeting super hard. But he is reasonable. I think a small like weakness to like duck him down another tier as well would be like some of the newer heroes like Enigma and New potentially are probably going to gain more popularity than they deserve because they're new heroes and they're pretty strong into KO. So that would be why I would probably place them in A tier.
Yep. That sounds good.
I have one more quick point for Zen being A and not S.
Yeah.
He has a 49% win rate on Talishar right now. S tier decks do not have sub 50% win rates ever.
I don't know about that one.
This is not a thing, man. Every time it's like the highest win rate deck is also the best deck.
So yeah, like Riptide? So you're saying Riptide's S tier?
I think he's up there.
Ranger meta.
I honestly think Riptide's B tier.
Yeah, he's probably like...
Because like, I think people don't understand the fact that like he loses to Azalea. He loses to Zen. He flips a coin with KO. And he beats bad to mid Enigmas, and then good Enigmas don't care about him nearly as much. I think people are sleeping on thinking that matchup is good into like a good Enigma. A good Enigma will just make Spectral Shields and then attack with their big attack, and then like your traps just kill Spectral Shields that have no counters on it. Or he'll just put like one thing on the board, like a Rage Spectre that has no counters, and just swing the Rage Spectre every turn. And none of his traps trigger, and you can't really clear it because you have a hand that has traps in it and then also has attacks in it, but your attack damage is like 7, so they can easily block that and just keep hitting you with a hammer every round, and nothing triggers. It's like it has like real counter.
Or you just like play 3 things and don't attack. Yep. You're just like, here you go next turn, play Spectral Shield card, attack.
You just put things on the board until you have shields, like your Spectral Shields out, and then you can start swinging. That's it. It's like not really like it. Yeah, you'll still lose some of those games. Like it's not like Riptide is just like a 0% if the Enigma plays properly. The Riptide can still win, but it's nothing like super favored against good Enigma. I think medium Enigma players, like you probably just roll them most of the time. But saying all that, like I don't think he can even touch A tier because he can barely touch the 3 heroes that we've put in. Like Riptide is in B for me because he flips a coin with KO. He loses to Zen, and he loses to Azalea. Just starting right here. I think we can go to Enigma if we want. This one might move around a lot.
We missed an S tier hero, but we can go over this one as well.
Oh yeah, agreed.
Where do you guys? I've been starting a lot. Where do you guys think Enigma falls?
I think it's like top of B tier, maybe bottom of A tier. She's very powerful. She has some ridiculous cards. Obviously, she uses Traverse very well. Miragai's ridiculous. Restless Coalescence, especially combined with like Spectral Manifestations, is insane. She has a consistent game plan, although I think one of her main issues is consistency turn to turn. Like, she has this inevitability where she does have these auras in her deck, and if you don't have an answer to her powerful turns, then you just get run over. But she is a deck that can struggle to use big hands. Sometimes it can struggle to block. Sometimes it can struggle to actually have a high value turn. Like, when you're like blocking with Hold the Line and then flipping a Chi and activating Enigma, it's like 2 card, like maybe 5. Like, that's kind of underwhelming. But she is very powerful. She has some good matchups. The Mystic cards are crazy, so you have like a lot of ability to adapt to different matchups, but her matchup spread into the top is not great either, right? Similar to Riptide, where the Zen matchup and the Azalea matchup are pretty hard. The KO matchup's pretty good, but the other two being rough is... I don't think I could put her at top of A tier. Maybe you could convince me bottom of A tier off of power level alone and some good matchups, but I think I'd probably slot her in the top of B tier.
Yeah, I mean, I could argue like bottom of A, top of B is where I also feel, because Zen is not a bad matchup. Zen is like a 5% matchup. Realistically, like even with hate, it's like a 5% matchup. KO,
classic.
I think KO's favored. I think Enigma is favored into KO like pretty heavily, and that can swing based on the Enigma build. I think Azalea
or the scab rolls.
I don't even think the scab rolls matter. Like, they can roll primarily double action points, and Enigma can still win those games.
Sure. Yes.
Azalea is a problem for Enigma as well. So that's 2 matchups so far, and then 1 favored matchup. I would be fine with sliding them at the top of B for now, and then readjusting based on where we end up with other heroes. The one thing that Enigma really does have going for it, that we haven't seen from a lot of illusions in the past, is they have just like power game over turns, where they can like drop the Miragai, or they can manifestations into Coalescence, into like these big giant power turns that just like feel like they just end the game on the spot.
Well, if you're looking for illusionists that have turns that end the game on the spot, I got a girl for you that we can talk about a little later. But Enigma does have those turns. She's also very good into New, which is a matchup that you probably expect to see a lot of. New has been the most popular deck at all the battle hardens recently and has been doing pretty well. So a good matchup into New is definitely something to potentially bump her up towards.
I think the game with New goes one of 2 ways. Enigma just rolls New, and New never had a chance in the game, or New fatigues Enigma. Those are the only 2 ways I've ever seen the game go. And the New fatiguing Enigma requires their draws to line up in like very good sequence at the beginning of the game, or they just get ran over. But like you mentioned before, Enigma's big problem is just that like half the cards in your deck aren't cards. Like, they're not things you play. They're just like really bad. Nothing. They're just nothing burgers. Like, the deck is literally like 25 cards. Like, that's it. And then a bunch of stuff around it. So when you draw like the back half of that deck, you just have hands that are just like, it only blocks. That's all. I can't resolve any of these cards in my hand. So kind of a problem. We can talk about New next. I think this one's hard to place personally, but I'd be curious to hear what you guys think.
I think she's A tier for sure.
For sure.
Should I elaborate?
Elaborate.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, it's very consistent. The disruption that she has is like, we did a whole episode about it. Like, you just can't play around it properly in most cases. So she's able to like play this like proactive disruption game plan, which for some of the top decks is pretty annoying. I guess, yeah, she does have some not so great matchups with some of the meta. I don't know. She's been putting up results. I just feel like she's very consistently disruptive and powerful.
Yeah, I think her worst matchup that we've put up on this list so far is Enigma. She can definitely beat Zen. She can beat KO. Though I feel the KO can break out of her cycle easier than almost any other hero. A lot of the cases she can like start ripping hands, and then he can still just be like, here's 12 damage. What are you going to do about 12?
Well, he also plays a bunch of yellows, which helps.
And then the Azalea match, I would figure both of these people are like kind of okay playing in that match. Azalea should be favored, I think, a little bit, but Nu can definitely win that by like ripping things apart. The Nu's real issue is her control is phenomenal, but she still has to find a way to deal damage. And so sometimes the hands don't always like line up in a way where you're controlling your opponent, but you might not be actually dealing damage at the same time. And so your opponent can kind of come back by just like blasting you with a big turn. So like that's often how Zen wins the matchup, is like Zen gets in the cycle of like having to be blocked and do all the things. And then like Nu's kind of haven't dealt a lot of damage throughout the game. So maybe Zen's only like 10 health lower than her, going through all this cycle. And then Zen breaks out with this giant turn and she can never really come back from that. But then if that never happens, then she just like runs him out of good cards and the game's over. I would be curious if you guys have a different experience. That's been my experience with Nu.
No, I think Nu's pretty good. Yeah. Like you said, I think the illusionists are like the biggest problems for Nu. And historically speaking, I would expect there to be more illusionist, but we haven't really seen it at these few events so far. And the illusionists, or Enigma, is kind of poorly positioned potentially. Like obviously we have our top of B tier, which, you know, that goes up when it's talking about an illusionist. But if you expect that maybe illusionists aren't going to be as popular as a lot of people think they will be, I think Nu is a pretty reasonable pick. It has a lot of room for play. It has a lot of room for game planning and teching. And again, it's still a new deck, even though it's come out, you know, even though people are grinding a lot, it is still a relatively new deck. And playing against a disruptive deck, if you don't have enough reps, is really challenging.
Agreed. I kind of want to just like random fire a bunch of these heroes off into D tier that like aren't even.
Well, we missed an S here.
We'll get to things. Relax. But let's just like rapid fire these off. Like,
yep. Oh, you missed the Bravo tier on the tier maker.
Oh no, I did.
Oh yeah, I think Betsy's
Bravo,
better than Bravo.
Betsy, Arachne, Olympia.
We can talk about Olympia if you want, like a little bit, but it's
it
that tier.
Do anything. Reiner's a little higher.
I'd put Reiner.
I think
I'd put Reiner. I think it's like top of D. I think it's still unplayable.
Viserai. Probably a little better than that.
I think Viserai might be like C tier. I think those are the only like definitely D tier heroes that aren't worth talking about.
Yeah, I'm just making sure. Do you see any in here that are? I mean, I actually think I think Sky is pretty there, but
that Lexi girl is really trash.
Okay, so just Teklo. Yeah.
Oh, Teklo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to recap, we put Bravo, Betsy, Arachne, Olympia, Reinar, Teklo, Vossen in D tier. Just don't play these things. Like that, man. We're not really going to spend a lot of time on them. They're just not good right now. In this meta, just they're gone. So that's just we're just going to group all of those there.
Yeah.
Cool. Bolton, we can look at. I think Bolton's in a pretty bad spot, personally. I think he just got worse. Like he was actually kind of breaking through, and then he just got worse, in my opinion.
I think his new matchup should be really good.
Yeah.
Well, so you would think so, but like you would think so because he has like no blues, but you can't really saber them because you just Dido bonds or just disruption every turn, and you can't really raid them super well.
Why?
You can't raid them super well because Raiden is really weak against disruption. Like you can try, right? Like that's what you have to do.
Sure.
But like Bonds of Agony still like destroys you because Lumina is still your only good card. Like it's kind of like the old Uzuri matchup where I think Bolton was favored into Uzuri, but if Uzuri drew disruption consistently, it was really hard. But like Nu is just like all disruption. Like there's just not very much room for Bolton to like wiggle around.
Also, his ability costs him a card from his hand, so every other card he doesn't have in his hand, his power just like drops exponentially.
He's also super fatigable.
Sure.
I think his Enigma match is bad.
It's like
the Azalea matchup is just
Zen
unbearable.
is going to be bad.
You're going to get run over by Zen.
Yeah, I think all the warriors are kind
of terrible.
Pretty mid.
Yeah, I think Bolton is like bottom of C tier, maybe top of B tier. Like I'd put him in C tier only because he's a powerful hero that does powerful things. But like his matchup spread is terrible, and he's also not even that good.
Yeah.
I mean, I do the same thing for like, we can just do all the warriors. I mean, Dorinthia, I'm going to put in C as well.
Yeah, I think Hatchet Dory, you could like consider putting it like top of C. It's hard to put her like any higher than that because she does have a horrible matchup spread. But like into all the heroes that aren't the new heroes and Azalea, she's pretty reasonable. Like we took her to the Pro Tour for a reason. Like she's pretty good into KO, and then into any deck that's trying to play Flesh and Blood, she's pretty reasonable.
That has to be recapped. KO with the new stuff is better into Hatchets. She actually got worse into that matchup, so her KO matchup is worse, and it was already close. Like we took it because we felt favored playing into that matchup, but maybe we were 60%, right? Like now maybe we're 50%. That's like not great. Zen bad, Azalea bad, Enigma bad.
Yeah, none of these decks are playing Flesh and Blood anymore.
Riptide bad is actually bad for Hatchet Dory, in a lot of cases. And new, I don't know this matchup very well. No one's playing Hatchet Dory. And we're talking about Dawnblade Dory. Then you probably have a good match into KO, bad into Enigma still.
Yeah, then maybe it's a bad deck with good matchups, right?
Yeah,
like,
it's just like
it's still bad.
Yeah, it's
just there.
Yeah, I've heard the Enigma matchup is like unwinnable for Dawnblade as well.
That makes sense.
That's what Josh Lau said, so it's definitely got.
Now I think Kasai's down here as well. I think Kasai's actually probably worse than Dory personally.
Yep. Better KO match, not a lot else.
Yep. The other S tier hero is Kano. Kano.
Yep.
Yeah. Kano, yeah, that's the other S tier hero.
Does anyone disagree with this? Like,
broken.
Legitimately think Kano is S tier.
Most tier lists I've seen, I've been aligned with, and a lot of them have Kano rather at S or A.
Yeah, I think the problem is it's hard to kind of evaluate Kano because like you're not going to see him day 2, like you don't really have to worry about it. But like they'll be there day 1, so you have 4 rounds. Like if you lose round 1, all the Kanos will win all their CC matches.
Lucas, are you saying that the people who play Kano can't draft?
Dude, I already tweeted it. Like it's already out there. Like,
oof.
But yeah, the deck is really good, and if those players that are really good on Kano historically can figure out draft for this set, then it's like a real problem.
So yeah,
like I do think that they're a menace for the calling.
Let's be a little realistic. So I put in Kano in S tier, like we did for the other heroes. I think Kano's Azalea matchup is fine and playable. It's like any aggro match, right? It's a little harder because of like their ability to disrupt their arsenal, but the new card that Kano got does help a lot in these like aggro matches. Or depending on how your build is done. We already know the KO versus Kano match is just like flipping a coin a lot of the time, and sometimes maybe even better for good Kanos. The Zen matchup is going to be very similar. I think Zen is definitely probably favored in this matchup, but it's going to be tight.
It really depends on the build as well.
I think it depends on like sideboards and builds and.
Yeah, like you can build your Zen deck to be pretty good, but like if you're building some of the better builds of Zen that I've seen, just get like mollywopped by Kano.
Like the best Zen can do is turn 2 lethal, and Kano with Kindle can very consistently at least try and kill you in response.
I also think Kano just beats New, like pretty easily.
Yeah, it's hard to play, but you should be favored.
And then so here's the big contentious one: Kano versus Enigma. The 90. To be honest, either of these heroes can win, but
I think it's like a 10-10.
So the reason I think it's a 90-90, I'm gonna put this out here. I've played some of this match, and it's just kind of like both players can win. Both players get to execute mostly what their game plan is to try and win at the same time, and it just matters the order of the cards and then player skill. It has like a lot of things to do with it because the Kano is trying to keep your board clear. You're trying to eventually stick something on the board and not take a ton of damage, but Kano has to flip off the top every single round in order to blow up your ward. And if they flip like pieces that they need for the combo, every time they have to use one of those to clear your board, their ability to pitch stack is like goes away. If they don't hit any of those and they're able to pitch stack, then they can win the game. If you run an Oasis or not, like it changes the game as well. It's just like both players are actually playing their game plan into the matchup, and it just kind of just depends how the cards flip and player skill. Figure it out, but either of these people can win. Either Enigma or Kano can win that matchup. Kano dumps on Riptide and then buries most of the decks that we've put in D and C tier. So like, I don't think there's an argument for Kano at this point. Excuse me, not being S tier. With that type of matchup spread.
I agree. Yep. Like Lucas said in his tweet, 100% to win the calling.
Good tweet. Let's just throw Uzuri down in C tier.
I don't even. She was like, doesn't even need a tier. Like, what are you doing? Why are you not?
Why are you not playing new?
Yeah, she's got to be like top of C, but like, she's fine. Yeah. I don't know. Like, she's good. She's
I would much rather play against Uzuri than new and any hero that is in B, A, or S tier.
Agreed. Dude, I play with any hero in the game.
So yes, C tier for you. Vincent. I think Vincent's an interesting one. Looking at what we have right here.
Yeah.
Where
she moved from D tier to bottom of C tier.
No,
probably like. I mean, for like an entire tournament, she's probably still C tier, but she's got good play against aggro decks, and we have two. I guess Azalea too. We have like 2 A tier aggro decks and 1 S tier. Kano matchups should be pretty good, right? Because we have Shadow equipment with Spell Void 2, basically.
Yep, definitely playable.
I think. Yeah, the biggest thing about Vincent for me is it's like she's supposed to have play into all these things, and like she has all the Spell Void for Kano, and like she has good disruption sometimes, and like she does all these things, but like, where's the results? Like, where's the list that's doing well? Where's the anything? Like, I'm perfectly willing to believe she's good, but where?
The issue is anyone can just say I block cards and then like beat most of the Vincents. Which is like frustrating that she doesn't have a good plan for fatigue. She has some plans for fatigue and they work some of the time. But
and Warmongers is hot on the meta now. That's really bad for her.
Yep. But yeah, close. Almost B tier in my mind. But not there yet. Viserai, bottom of C. Can we just throw them there and move on with our lives?
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, boring aggro deck. Got it. Okay. Levia. Levia's an interesting one. So where do you think Levia goes here?
A. Somewhere in A.
Probably A. I'm trying. Where does she fit in the meta right now?
So that's her thing, is like her matchup spread is fine because she has game into everything.
Yeah.
She's just like an uber powerful
I think
deck
her Zen matchup is kind of terrible.
Yeah. I think she has a consistent enough game plan. She has some inconsistencies and sometimes she falls apart, but her game plan of play reasonable math, block sometimes, play Blood Rush, play Art of War is like so good that I wouldn't be able to put her any lower than A. She's also
I think she's B tier.
I'm getting sick of hearing how good Levia is. Like, people need to spend more time playing the deck. It's like, it's bad KO. I'm just gonna like make all the Levia haters like really upset. It's just bad KO. And we've said it before. KO 20% of the time you're playing the game, you feel like a bad Reinhardt player because like your hands just don't line up very well. But at least you're still playing the game. That percentage of the time that the Levia deck doesn't function properly, you just automatically lose the game. Like, she just has a bunch of failure spots for her power that she's getting. And the failure spots happen enough times that I think it really, it can't be an A tier deck, personally.
I think Levia is like if Uzuri was like the like 7th best deck in the game. Like, that's what it reminds me of. Like, I do think KO is probably better overall. It has a better matchup spread. But like, I honestly still think Levia is just like a phenomenal hero. Like, I think she's just like so reasonable into everything and just stomps some games. Like, every tournament I've played Levia with, literally ever, I've always gone X2. Like, I've never done better, but I've never done worse. And that's just kind of like, she is one of the most powerful decks in the game in any format. She has ridiculous numbers, and the games that she works, she's phenomenal. But like, I think she would need another piece to put her in like S tier. But I do think she's still really, really good. Maybe you could put her into top of B because she's not as good as KO, but Like some matchups she is.
Let's
like
look at
in
the actual
KO,
matchups,
she's
though.
favored.
Like her new matchup.
I think she's B tier at best.
There's no world where I want to play into new as Levia. No. If anyone gets screwed by their hand being messed with, it's the hero that has to play certain cards from their hand in order to not die. Let's just point and they have blues that sometimes can be played for the new ability. Like new actually has text, and new is good even when the hero power has no text. So let's put that in there.
I think that would be like the tricky matchup where I would say like KO is like much better.
Zen's a huge issue too.
Zen is a terrible matchup for
Traverse just says like you're not flipping.
Yep. So
and your Husky's gonna get
that's two and A that are bad.
We shouldn't be playing Husky.
KO, I agree. Levia is favored into KO by like 5 or 10%. She still loses that game like a decent amount of the time because of her own, built-in weakness as well. So like let's just say flip a coin against KO. Maybe a little better than flip a coin. A little bit better. Just a tiny bit. The Kano match, isn't that good. Isn't as good as people think it is. Like if you draw the wrong half of your deck, you literally do nothing and die. If you have to draw like very specific hands against Kano to even apply pressure to him, because getting stuff into your grave is rather difficult in that matchup. And then Azalea is kind of flippy, but it's completely dependent on what type of arrows Azalea has in the deck, because there's several arrows that Azalea can play that just completely kill Levia as well.
Yeah, I think it's okay to put her in top of B. I just like I've played the deck enough in enough different situations to like she just always feels so good. Like she always feels like so good to play.
I agree.
I don't know. Maybe it's like what's the phrase, like rose tinted? No, whatever it is. But I think the deck's really, really strong, and I would put it like
the deck's super strong. But I would rather play Vincent in this meta. Like I would sub Vincent before I would.
But look at the A tier and the S tier, and tell me what in here she actually wants to face, because like at least half of this, like at least Zen, New, and Kano, I don't think she wants to play against.
I think it's like similar. I think it's like similar to KO's matchup spread, where like if you look at the top heroes, like they're the top heroes for a reason. Like you're not great in any of them, but you're not that bad in any of them. New being probably an exception.
Yeah, except like KO's Kano match is significantly better, just like astronomically better. Because it doesn't like what half of the deck you draw matters a lot.
Ask the Kano players. Ask the Kano players. I think they'd all rather play against KO, but I guess if you ask the brute players, maybe they'd rather be KO.
I mean, I like.
I'm fine with.
I like that you have like the you have like the shadow gloves and whatnot. Makes sense, and I don't think her Enigma matchup is anything like super great to write home about. It's not terrible either. It's just not great.
I think she's worse than KO. I think she's worse than KO into Enigma, which is another reason. I think it's small, but I agree. I think that is like another. I think she's fine where she is in the list.
I think the deck's super strong. I just in this meta, I think it's one of her worst states that she's been in my opinion. Okay.
Yep.
Talk about a hero that has kind of impressed me a little bit lately. What about Dash IE?
This one sucks.
It's like I mean, its Enigma match is pretty good. It's a little bit not beholden to new. Its Kano match is very good. Like it has some matches that it can actually navigate through.
I think Dash is like what everybody thought Vincent was going to be coming into this meta, where it's like not a very good deck, but it has like pretty good matchups into a lot of the good decks. But like, I don't think its matchups are that good. It has, I think, tools to be able to combat most of the really strong decks. Like T-Bones and Meganetics are obviously like really powerful against Zen, especially if you get them early. Like the Enigma matchup is pretty reasonable. You're not actually very susceptible to fatigue. The Kano matchup, like you said, is very good. It probably has the best Kano matchup in the game.
Prism
matchup, the KO matchup sucks, but it's still an aggro mirror.
It's kind of flippy. It's like you're flipping, but you're at like 45 or 40% in the flip.
Yeah, the biggest problem is like you just like they have flesh bag, and so like your turns just like don't work. Like a lot of the time, like Max V just doesn't work. Which is a problem. And then I've heard the new matchup is not great.
Not great.
You have a lot of blues.
Yeah.
It's fine. Yeah, it's perfectly reasonable. I don't see a perfectly good reason to play her when I think that there's a hero with a similar matchup spread that's just
I don't think.
Yeah, I think we need the last A
And-
tier for context because Dash is pretty good into Prism, right?
Yeah, that is a good matchup for
So
Dash.
we need that last A tier hero on here. I think,
for now, I want
to place Dash
we-
For
properly.
now, I still think B. Like, it's not an A tier. It's
Yeah.
not a
think
C
B's
tier
fine.
because it
I think you
has
could put her a
decent
little-
matches.
It's for sure not C tier.
I think you could put her a little higher in B. I'd be okay with her like towards the top of B because I think she is really good. I just like don't think she's anything special.
Okay, let's do.
Can we get my girl up there, please?
Prism. Where do we want to put?
Top of S
No,
tier.
it's not even
Top
close.
of S tier.
Not
It's the
even
best
close.
pick. Get out of here. No, she's probably somewhere in A tier.
Okay, so
Yeah, she's like
She,
lower,
I
lower A tier.
Again,
I think.
I don't know
let's
why.
look at it
You go
realistically. Kano, great match, absolutely phenomenal match.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Right?
I don't know why I said Dash had the best
Yeah.
Kano matchup in the game. Prism's literally right
best
there.
Kano
Like,
match, right? Azalea, a little harder now that they're running Mercs and a couple other things, and that they like kind of care about that stuff. But what do you think the Azalea match looks like? I think it's hard and kind of skill dependent and draw dependent.
yeah, I think it's reasonably close. I think it kind of changes every time I do. Like throughout the multiple formats I've played both heroes, every time I do a testing session, it feels different. Like I'll play 4 games as Azalea and I'll get stomped, and then I'll play 4 more games and I'll stomp them, and then I'll play Prism against Azalea and 4 games I'll get stomped.
It's top
and then I'll
20
stomp
dependent,
them.
right? Like the top 20 of your deck dependent.
Yeah. I think Prism has the slight advantage of being able to high roll. Like Erudition in the first turn wins you the game most of the time. Arclight in good spots wins you the game a lot of the time. Like sometimes you're just like losing, you're like super far behind, and then you're just like, oh, I have Soraya. Oh, Arclight, blue, yellow. Oh, okay. Your turn's over. Here's 11. And that's like really strong.
Okay.
But
So
do
far
think
so
it's
good.
close.
We have the best Kano match. We have playable into Azalea, maybe slightly favored. I think it's KO match. You're slightly unfavored, but it's playable.
Yeah. I think also the biggest strength of Prism, I think, is people not knowing how to play it against it still somehow. And the bad matchups in particular is where you feel this the most. Where like the unfavored matchups with Prism like feel like almost unlosable if your opponent's like never played the matchup before, which is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, she just has so many tricks that are like, you lost the game because you didn't play around this.
Yeah, your Halo does like 5 different turn-ending things. Like, it's ridiculous.
And then Zen, I think she is favored. Still losable matchup. Playable.
I don't think she's
I
favored.
don't think she's favored.
It's fine,
think
but I don't think she's favored.
It's pretty close. I think that both players have opportunity to put tech in the deck.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of reminds me of Dromai into like Azalea, for example, where the Dromai or the Prism is favored, but like the Zen or the Zen can be favored if they just like, oh, I have 5 extra sideboard slots, all Prism. Cool, now I'm favored.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fair. It's uncomfortable from both sides.
Yeah. You always feel like you're just gonna die. Like no matter what you're
And it's like a 2-turn game every time. It's like
New?
stomp them.
Stomp.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. The Enigma matchup.
Stomp them. You absolutely destroy them. I am so serious. But we can fight on that. I think that matchup's really good for Prism.
Disagree, but that's fine. And
I don't know, she sounds top of A tier to me.
she doesn't sound top of A tier. She feels like good, playable.
You guys put her wherever you want.
Here.
I probably put her over
Favored,
New.
playable, unfavored. Ooh.
New's so weird, man. Depending on the pilot, she like
She is
performs
S
so
tier.
different.
By our own metrics, she's S tier.
Right?
That's terrible.
I just think she's really good. Like,
wait, I said top of A tier. They're like, no, that's too high.
That's terrible.
I
But
think
by
you can throw her
metrics,
in-
technically, she should be S tier because she beats an S tier.
I don't know.
She is
Uh,
maybe you can say it's skill top 20, whatever. The other S tier. So like she's not unfavored against either S tier. She's super favored into one and maybe flips a coin into the other one. Right?
Well, if we're doing that, I think KO's like the top of S tier now. I think he beats all 3 of these decks.
yeah. I think my personal opinion is that
I think we gotta switch
Prism
it. KO is the only S tier. Everyone else is A tier.
My opinion is that Prism is S tier at US Nationals and like middle A tier at the professional tour. That's like where I would put Prism. Like I think she's really good.
Done. I was saying she does that into the S tier, right? She has a playable but unfavored matchup into KO. The
completely destroy KO.
Flips a coin into Zen, if you want to say that, right? And then beats New, right? So like that's already good in the A tier, and then good in the S tier, and then we go to the B tier. Let's look at like what she's playing against here, right? Her Enigma match is both sides are never going to agree who's favored in this matchup. Levia, hard.
Hard. So the Levia matchup's kind of funny. It's like playing against strong Levia pilot who is experienced is worse than KO, but playing against Levia that like is like inexperienced is like so much easier than KO, because they like not only do they like have more room, they have like harder plays, but they also die so easily. Like if you make them pop with 2 cards a turn, sometimes they just die on the spot. Like but it's hard.
Dash matchup
I would feel fine. Nobody's gonna play Dash. Don't worry about Dash.
Bad. Riptide matchup?
Great.
Yeah, it's actually pretty favored. That's why it feels hard for me to put this in A tier when it's like that matchup spread's actually pretty good.
I think
here's what I'm going to say.
I think she doesn't have
herself, so she goes down to A.
Yeah. She does have some consistency problems, and the problem is you're playing Empyrean Rapture into a lot of decks, and playing Empyrean Rapture just naturally means you're going to be more inconsistent when you're trying to end the game quickly. It's still just an aggro deck, but it's not an aggro deck like Azalea where you have control over the game and on hits that present questions that are unique outside of just give me armor. You don't have dominate. You're just not nearly as powerful quite as Azalea. So I think A tier is like the spot for her. But you can put her anywhere in A tier. It just depends on the day.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
If she got to play consistently every game, then I think she's S tier. But the fact that like you're just going to have some games where like you're like, okay, I'm ready to pop off. Oh, I drew an Erudition. My Erudition Angel is in my hand. I can't actually do what I wanted to do. Well, like, and then you end up like fumbling out the game is like a problem, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Dash IO.
This deck sucks.
I know this deck's so bad.
It's so bad. It's so bad. All the copers out there, I'm talking to you. You guys are heard. You guys are seen, and your deck is terrible. But that's okay. It's really fun.
I don't know. It's got some playing Tiger matchups and like Kano.
Yeah.
It's like Vincent.
It's really bad
for
in the
me.
new. Really bad.
I'm just shoving it in C tier, I think.
That's fine. I think
it's literally
she's hanging out with
Vincent. Yeah, it's literally Vincent. It's like, hey, I do cool and powerful things, and then every deck fatigues me somehow. Like it's literally the same problem that Vincent has. Good call.
But you don't even destroy Enigma.
Let's do Max. Dan, our resident Max expert, who I don't think is actually a Max expert anymore, but we keep referring to as such.
I dabbled for a tournament.
Max is better than he used to be.
Bottom B is good.
Right? Yeah.
Like Max does the boost plan almost as well as Dash. It's a little different. It's like a little more consistent because of your resource production, but your damage output's a little less because you don't start with an item. But then you have this mech suit that just like sometimes wins the game. This is kind of a fast format though, so I think Max is kind of going down. You're like targeting Kano probably if you're bringing Max, and like I don't know, like what deck are we mech suiting against here?
I don't know why you'd ever play Max over Dash right now, right? Because like surely it's just your like any aggro matchup you'd rather be Dash.
What about
any aggro? Maybe Azalea.
If you make the suit against Azalea, I think you do just win.
Maybe they can just kill you pretty quickly.
Well, the issue is you don't have D-reacts against like Azalea and stuff. Like, so everything just every dominate.
That's why you need the suit. That's what I'm saying. It might be better than Dash.
Yeah. Zen, I don't think it's very good for it. It's
I don't know.
Fast.
Put it in C tier. Top C.
Yeah, I think it's C.
It's just not.
Yeah. So Max,
there's no slow deck to target. Like if there's any slow deck in the meta, I think he can pump up. Like he's pretty strong actually, but
5.
Time.
C. Fi in the C.
I don't know, man.
Who's playing
Fi.
Fi when Zen's around? I don't.
I like the last tier list better when it was like we could just say don't play this deck, and that's a whole tier.
I mean, yeah,
Don't play Fi.
Fi's Uzuri if it was also bad. Like,
no order. Let's just
that's
put Fi in D tier as there's no reason to play this hero.
Yep. Fi is top of D tier instead of bottom of B tier because like he's a really good budget deck. So like if you're on a budget, he's pretty good.
Next hero. I think this one's a little tough to place. Katsu.
Probably B tier somewhere, right? Like he's fine.
I
he's not good. He's not good, but he's not bad. I don't know, like he does stuff.
So his matchup into Enigma is pretty playable, because of your weapons. You can get ran over, but it's more playable than I think people think it is. Let's see. Its new matchup is not going to be great, but not going to be terrible because unlike Zen, where they don't have to block your stuff, they can hold to try and rip cards out of your hand. If Katsu gets away with a turn with cards in their hand, Nu has to now block, or Katsu can pop off and get that health lead that we were talking about. Nu sometimes has a problem gathering up the space on. So in theory, Katsu should have a playable match into Nu. Not a fun to play, but it should be playable there. Like you should be able to break out of the cycle a lot easier than other decks do. It's Zen match. This should be playable as well. Might actually be favored.
It should be.
I think if you're playing Katsu, you're targeting like Zen and KO.
Yeah.
Surely. And then, otherwise, I don't know.
And then KO. So we have KO, Zen,
also
Nu, Kano. Yep. Oh, that's a good little amount right there.
They're not like that good of matchups though, right? Like that's the issue.
They're not great.
But you definitely think they're that good if you're bringing this hero.
Yeah. And then Enigmas as well. Yeah. Like you think maybe you can win that group. That's a good enough group, in my opinion, to at least be in the B tier. Like,
I think he's like top of B, but he's just kind of like an inconsistent like aggro deck. And then the matchups where you're consistent, where you're playing more of a like slow defensive combo plan, just like don't really exist right now. Like you have to just be like balls to the wall, kill you as soon as I can right now. I mean, you're still Katsu, so you still take a couple turns off early, but like you're still playing an aggro deck in aggro mirrors. It's kind of, I don't know. Like I would just rather play. Like I don't think he's strictly worse than Zen because he's just different. But I do think Zen is just like much better if you want to be playing an aggressive deck or Azalea.
Yeah, Zen doesn't care if he hits or not, but Katsu can punish people who will let him hit. So it's that that dichotomy there. But I think you're bringing Katsu to nationals. Not actually that bad of a choice if you're trying to like it's pretty it's a good like anti-meta deck, right?
Yeah, I think B tier is like the bottom of like heroes that I think are reasonable to bring. Like I think B, A, and S are all like fine heroes to bring.
Yeah. I wouldn't bring heroes in C unless you're like your brand depends on it or something. Then I guess you can bring those heroes. That's kind of what that feels like to me. This is like C is like your brand depends on this, so we still play it. D.
Yeah. You couldn't monetize that C. Like
no one cares about D, so don't bring those. But yeah, B is like with the right matchups. You can do well. And then S and A are like, they're competing to just top 8 almost no matter what their matchups are, but obviously they can't have a bunch of bad ones. They're more like, instead of like worrying about like S and A are worrying about their matchups a lot less. They're worried about just making sure that their decks function in the way they expect them to in the matchups. And B is worried about matchups. It's kind of how this breakdown looks to me. At a glance.
I agree.
Do we miss anyone?
Last hero.
We missed the horse.
The horse. Oh, right.
Dude, he's in such a weird spot.
I had so many people message me after the one pod where Cody said I was playing Victor. I had like 10 people message me like asking just like, what is wrong with you? Like, is Victor actually playable? And I was like,
I mean, he's got some like S tier matchups, but he's also got a lot of F tier matchups is the issue.
Yeah.
I think people just like fundamentally misunderstand what Victor is right now, and that's like why everybody misevaluates him. Like he doesn't even feel like a guardian. Like he feels like I'm playing Brute when I play Victor. It's like I IP myself like 1 in 7 hands. So like the games where that never happens, like it's phenomenal. But like the games where that happens multiple times and you just like you IP yourself and you're just doing nothing are really bad. but like he's a really good aggressive deck, which is like the thing that people are confused about. Like you have power cards, you have Test of Strength. Every single card in your deck that says gold on it is insane. Golden Sun, Test of Strength, Trounce, Visit the Goldman Estate. Those are actually 4 of the best cards in the game. And Victor gets to play 3 of all of them, as well as having normal Guardian equipment that blocks fine, right? They've kind of been overshadowed by like brutes in terms of, who has better equipment, but their equipment's still pretty good. It blocks for a lot. Your Enigma match is better than people think it is. Your new match is better than people think it is. Your Zen matchup is worse than people think it is. Your KO matchup just sucks. You're pretty good into random prisms, although I think most prisms should actually trounce you. Kano is not a deck that people are going to play, so you don't have to worry about that. And then you're pretty good into Azalea. So he's fine, but he's just this inconsistent aggro deck masquerading as a horse playing Guardian cards.
I think people are sleeping on its matchup with Nu, thinking that like Nu just plays all his blues and wins the game, and that's just like not how that matchup works, because Nu has to figure out a way not to die before she could flip the chi and actually start playing the game and getting your blues.
Yeah, you outvalue them by like 3 points a turn. Like they actually have to get there.
I think its Zen matchup is decent on paper, but they can easily still get blown out because they don't always have on hits. They're not Bravo. Like it's not like their big attacks always have text on them. And then the KO match you're unfavored into, you can win it, but it's not great. I agree.
That's pretty. Yeah, that's why I wouldn't play Victor is because of that matchup. I think that's like the matchup that's like break for me. Why I dropped the deck personally. Spoiler alert, I will not be playing Victor at Nationals. It was because KO just wasn't meaningfully playable in any way.
I think B tier is correct though. I think it's very playable.
It's really high in B then.
I would put it top of. I would put top of B tier. I'd hesitate to put it at the bottom of A tier because it is, like I said, it's so damn inconsistent. But like, it's like you just win a lot of your like bad matchups a lot of the time, and this is a format where people are sleeping on Guardian. They're not getting their reps in like they should be. You really have the ability to pounce on some Enigmas or News who just think they should beat you, and then you play, Visit the Goldman Estate as a 1-card draw card, makes 7 mites, and they just die when you hit them for 25.
I love when people are just like the Enigmas are just like, I write off Victor. Like they're just like, oh, this is a free matchup, I win this. And I'm like, this matchup is incredibly technical. Like, what are you talking about? Like, play against a good Victor, with a good list against Enigma, and then like you're like, oh, this is actually pretty technical of how I'm supposed to play this, and how to, and it's hard.
And you die a lot of the time. Like you just lose sometimes.
So, for the first time, I think ever in our podcast, Victor pretty good, not bad. I think
I think Katsu's better, but
I think for a long time we've said not good. But
you guys have said not good. I've been a Guardian.
I think before his new card, he was trash. I think his new card is really, really good.
Yeah, if you didn't have the best card in the set, then it would be pretty
Let's
bad,
look at this list before we wrap this up for podcast questions and see if anything moves around based on where we ended up. So our S tier, we ended up with Azalea and Kano, and I don't think we're moving anything from there, right? That looks good to me.
No.
A tier, we ended up with Prism, KO, Zen, Nu. Do we think Zen's a little low here? Do we think KO's a little high here? Prism at the top of A?
I think Prism should be lower.
I put Prism third.
I think Prism is behind
probably
Zen
here.
And KO.
That looks good to me.
I think KO could be S tier, and we could move the S tiers down. But currently, I agree with this.
I also agree. I think KO is perfectly reasonable in S tier.
But I think if he's an S tier, here's the only S tier.
That would be completely different metrics, I think. And I think it would be discounting the 20% of the time where KO isn't a real deck. And maybe 20 is a little high. Maybe it's more like 15, but there is a good percentage of the time where you're playing KO and you're like, what deck am I playing? Like, this is not a KO deck. And his dependency on rolling in this meta is higher than I think it's ever been. And that's a little dubious, right? So,
especially in matchups where you also need Bonebreaker.
So, keeping him there makes sense. Zen, very good. Prism, Nu. I think I agree that Victor is below Katsu in B tier. Enigma feels a little low, but not completely inaccurate. I think it has a good matchup into new. I think its Prism matchup is okay. I think its KO matchup is good. I think its Zen matchup is 0%. I think its Azalea matchup is not 0%, but very bad. And then I think its Kano matchup is good. Is that enough to move it up?
I think so. It's also just very powerful.
I'm a hater. You guys do what you want with Enigma.
I think Victor is too high. I think Dash is better than Victor too.
Let's look. Katsu. I think it has to be top of B.
Yeah,
I think Enigma has to be top of B. Because Enigma also has the issue of like sometimes you just draw hands that are like there's no flesh and blood cards in your hand. They're just nothing. There's literally nothing in your hand. Your opponent could say pass.
What do you mean? You have
and you would do nothing. You would just pass back. Like
you have like some 2-block D reacts and some cards that say shuffle your deck.
Okay. Anything else you think should move around?
No, that's fine.
Cool. I think that wraps up the official Runaways tier list. Okay, let's do some podcast questions. These are asked by members of our premium Discord. If you'd like to join the Discord to be able to ask questions, check out videos that we put out every single month, find people to practice with, or ask questions of the team, feel free to join in the link below. The first question we have is from Therlefex, and it says, is this a stay open or force format? Talking about draft. What are the best signals to send and receive?
First of all, my answer is get back to me after Amsterdam, because nobody really is sure yet. But I actually think this is the first time in a while where you have multiple different options. Like there's such a wide array of draft strategies that I think can work right now because everybody is so unsure. It's the first format since Bright Lights where you can meaningfully stay open like through a pack or two, and you can have like a lot of good solid generic cards and mystic cards that let you do powerful things, but also there are some really powerful class cards, and just forcing has consistently shown to be really strong in Flesh and Blood. Even in Bright Lights, for example, where you could stay open, we still saw the top 8 was all just a bunch of 30 forcers that couldn't draft like they're supposed to. So anything is possible.
Yeah, I think this is the least punishing set we've seen in terms of being like the third or fourth of a hero.
Yeah.
And personally, I just subscribe to forcing never being correct. So every format's a stay open format.
Yeah, I think this is more of like whatever your individual strategy is. Especially at this point in people's draft experience. I will say I felt very comfortable staying open. I felt very comfortable forcing. I don't think sending signals is a little rougher in this set than in previous sets. Especially if you open your pack and you have the 2-3-2 split and you want a card out of the 3 pile, you're just like, I'm signaling nothing when it comes around. But for the most part, it's just like there's so many ways people can draft that unless you're just getting a pack that has like one assassin card in it and the guy directly next to you is the assassin player, it's like, who cares if there's an assassin two down from you? It like doesn't matter. You can still also be assassin, right? Or whatever class you want to be.
Yeah, the most unique part about this set, I think, compared to other sets that we've seen like ever in Flesh and Blood, is the class cards are just so abysmal. Like for the most part, like so many class cards are just bad.
Yep.
And that's something that we've never really seen before. Like even the lower end, even like the higher end, like okay ones, they're pretty medium, and compared to generics, they're really not much better. Or in some case, there's actually worse than like mid-level generics. So it's really hard to evaluate how people are drafting because there are, like we've all talked about, I think a little bit, there are so many different ways to draft this set, and they're all pretty reasonable. And so like assuming what the person next to you is doing can be really dubious and can be punishing in some spots because they might take an assassin card and just not play assassin. Like that might be what they're doing. They might take an assassin card and heads down force assassin if there's no assassin cards in the next 2 packs for them.
Yep.
You really just don't know.
And because of the limit on 30 cards, you can like waste a bunch of picks and just like be fine with it and still end up with a good deck, knowing that like most of the best cards are the generics anyway. So
yeah,
it's like not even a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Next question from Cusco asks, will there be a token for Nationals this year? And what is everyone looking most forward to at the Nationals event?
No tokens for this one. I'm sure we'll do something for Pro Tour. This was a little too much of a scramble. I don't think we even like thought about it, to be honest.
Yeah, unfortunately, when they drop a set like less than a month before the event, and we have to figure out 2 formats, and then turns out all the heroes are good, it's like, yeah, a lot of the other stuff it kind of fell to the wayside as everyone's scrambling to just be like, I just want to look like I know what I'm doing when I'm playing the deck that I bring. So,
yeah, we usually meet on Tuesdays to talk about that kind of thing, and I don't think we have had a meeting since April because
yeah, it's been tough.
Got to prep for Nats.
I will say I am looking forward to seeing the whole team again. Nationals is usually fun. It's like the least stressful major that we go to. So it has like a different feel, in my opinion, than like Pro Tour, World, stuff like that. Like those are like really big events with like really big amounts of money on the line. And it's all like top good players. These events are like pretty wide open. The pricing is like a calling for the most part. And we're playing like the prices are good. Any other card game, the prices would be good. In this case, this is like the lowest thing that we're playing for at like as a whole team. So the atmosphere is a little bit more relaxed. Even though we're still playing super competitive, just the whole feeling of the event is a little bit different than like a Pro Tour or a Worlds, in my opinion. And it's nice to have like one of those.
Yeah, I agree. I'm so excited for this event. Minneapolis is like my favorite city. I'm staying with one of my closest friends who lives out there now. So it'll be a good time hanging with them, see the whole team. It's my birthday on Sunday, I think. So Sunday, Monday, I get to celebrate after.
I didn't know that.
Oh,
that's how.
Yeah, it's on Sunday.
Perfect timing.
My wife and brother are coming. It's like, there's no way for this trip to be not a good time.
You have to day 3 then.
Oh yeah, and Nats is also just like my event. Like I've gone 10th, 5th, and then 2nd. So surely, I was 10th, 2nd, 5th. It's like,
we were talking in the team, and I was like, it's kind of crazy. I was like, I feel like I have a really good Nats record, and then Dan was like, I think it's like 3rd best on the team, and I was like, oh yeah, you did top 4 in Nats, or you did make the finals.
Yeah,
and
mine's like actually just strictly better by one place.
Oh yeah,
one place, and then another top 8.
Yeah,
but I didn't win.
Yeah, we have a lot of of Nationals top 8s on the team.
Yeah, this is our event. That's what I'm looking forward to the most. Is the Runaways just killing it again? Because like if you look back historically, not just top 8s either. Like if you look at like top 16, top 32s, top 64 of every single year of Nationals, it's all Runaways. Like they're everywhere. You can't like we didn't even know each other back then, and it's like 11th, 12th, 15th, 18th, like last couple of years ago. Like Jason, before he joined the team, last year's Nats 11th. Like it's always our event. So I expect 7 out of 8 of the top 8 to be Runaways. The 8th person will be some friend, and then
dude, even if none of us top 8, just like riding the wave of confidence we're gonna have until that point is gonna be a good time.
Yeah. No, it's. But
we're gonna do it.
Yeah. It's also always just great to see everybody. That's everybody's favorite part of every event. Yeah. Is seeing their friends. So that's what I'm looking forward to most, actually.
Sweet. Well, that's everything we got. We have a lot of practicing still to do and some drafts to do, and most people don't even have their sideboards done completely on what they're playing in every single matchup, and they should probably do that after this, or write it down or do something about it. So we're gonna go. Goodbye, everyone. See you guys. Have a good time. We'll see you in a couple of days, maybe a day, depending on when you listen to this. So say hi to us. Yeah, all that stuff. Yeah. Goodbye.
Yeah, we're getting rid of the envelope
7
here, but
envelope.
What we could do here is go ahead and play the envelope.
All 3 pitches of envelope and darkness.